සමහර විට වෛද්‍යවරයෙක්, ගුරුවරයෙක්, නීතිඥයෙක් වෙන්නත් පුළුවන්. නමුත් ඔබෙත් මගෙත් කුසකිනෙනි වන්නේ ඔහුයි. ඔබේ රැකියාව අහසෙ වෙන්නත් පුළුවන්. නැත්නම් මහසයුර වෙන්නත් පුළුවන්. තාක්ෂණය හෝ සංවර්ධනය වෙන්නත් පුළුවන්. අපි කවුරු මොනවා කළත් කුසකිනෙනි වන්නේ ඔහුයි. ධනවතෙක් උනත් නොවනත්, වැඩිහිටියෙක් හෝ ලදරුවෙක් වුණත්, ඔබත් මමත් කවුරු වුණත් අපේ කුසකිනෙනි වන්නේ ඔහුයි. අහස්ස පොළව ගෙනෙන අභියෝග හමුවේ නොසැලුණු ඔහුට පන්නරය දුන් CIC කෘෂි ව්‍යාපාර වසර 25ක් පුරා ජීවිත අස්වැත්වූ මෙහෙයුම අනාගත පරපුරටත්
ඉකෝවිටා ගොවිදෑතට රන්නස් වැන්නක්.
රජෙක් වෙන්නත් පුළුවන්. සමහර විට වෛද්‍යවරයෙක්, ගුරුවරයෙක්, නීතිඥයෙක් වෙන්නත් පුළුවන්. නමුත් ඔබෙත් මගෙත් කුස කිනෙනිවන්නේ ඔහුයි. ඔබේ රැකියාව අහසෙ වෙන්නත් පුළුවන්. නැත්නම් මහසයුර වෙන්නත් පුළුවන්. තාක්ෂණය හෝ සංවර්ධනය වෙන්නත් පුළුවන්. අපි කවුරු මොනවා කළත් කුස කිනෙනිවන්නේ ඔහුයි. ධනවතෙක් උනත් නොවනත්, වැඩිහිටියෙක් හෝ ලදරුවෙක් වුණත්, ඔබත් මමත් කවුරු වුණත් අපේ කුස කිනෙනිවන්නේ ඔහුයි. අහස පොළව ගෙනෙන අභියෝග හමුවේ නොසැලුණු ඔහුට පන්නරය දුන් CIC කෘෂි ව්‍යාපාර වසර 25ක් පුරා ජීවිත අස්වැත්වූ මෙහෙයුම අනාගත පරපුරටත්
ඉකෝවිටා ගොවිදෑතට රන්න ස්වැන්නක්.
Good morning, everyone. Today, we gather here to celebrate the spirit of research, innovation, and academic excellence. Agris has become a symbol of knowledge sharing and exploration, where our talented undergraduate students present their research findings and ideas to a distinguished audience. Vihanga?
Yes, Kanchana. We strive to create for our students to explore their academic passions and pave the way for their future success. Agris serves as a platform to our young scholars to showcase their hard work, creativity, and dedication.
Embark on this exciting journey of knowledge. I would like to share a beautiful quote by Albert Einstein, who once said, "The important thing is not to stop questioning. Curiosity has its own reason for existing."
So, without further ado, let's commence the remarkable location. The 21st Agris Research Symposium is absolutely a celebration of intellectual curiosity, a showcase of innovation, and a testament to the academic prowess of our undergraduate students. May this event inspire us all to think critically, explore relentlessly, and push the boundaries of knowledge.
So, let's reveal
The utmost pinnacle
of scientific inauguration,
Agris 2023.
රජෙක් වෙන්නත් පුළුවන්. සමහර විට වෛද්‍යවරයෙක්, ගුරුවරයෙක්, නීතිඥයෙක් වෙන්නත් පුළුවන්. නමුත් ඔබෙත් මගෙත් කුසකිනෙනි වන්නේ ඔහුයි. ඔබේ රැකියාව අහසෙ වෙන්නත් පුළුවන්. නැත්නම් මහසයුර වෙන්නත් පුළුවන්. තාක්ෂණය හෝ සංවර්ධනය වෙන්නත් පුළුවන්. අපි කවුරු මොනවා කළත් කුසකිනෙනි වන්නේ ඔහුයි. ධනවතෙක් උනත් නොවනත්, වැඩිහිටියෙක් හෝ ලදරුවෙක් වුණත්, ඔබත් මමත් කවුරු වුණත් අපේ කුසකිනෙනි වන්නේ ඔහුයි. අහස්ස පොළව ගෙනෙන අභියෝග හමුවේ නොසැලුණු ඔහුට පන්නරය දුන් CIC කෘෂි ව්‍යාපාර වසර 25ක් පුරා ජීවිත අස්වැත්වූ මෙහෙයුම අනාගත පරපුරටත්
ඉකෝවිට ගොවිදෑතට රන්නස් වෙන්නක්.
Gentlemen, as we gather here today for this special occasion, we take a moment to honor tradition and the symbolized essence of unity and enlightenment. Kanchana?
For that, I would like to invite Senior Professor Udit Jayasinghe, Chief Guest of the 21st Agras, Vice Chancellor of the Wayamba University of Sri Lanka, Dr. Derek Hedy, Keynote Speaker of the 21st Agras, Professor J.C. Edirisinghe, Dean of the Faculty of Agriculture and Plantation Management, Acting Dean of the Faculty of Livestock, Fisheries and Nutrition, Dr. Nadisha Dilrukshi, Dr. A.M.N. Alagiyawanna, Dean of the Faculty of Technology, Dr. S.K. Gamage, Dean of the Faculty of Business Studies and Finance, Dr. L.T.R.D. Pereira, Dean of Faculty of Applied Sciences, Dr. P.G.C.S. Bowath, Dean of the Faculty of Medicine, and also Mr. W.A.D. Chitrananda, Registrar of Wayamba University of Sri Lanka.
Mr. Upale Dharmadasa, Bursar, Wayamba University of Sri Lanka, Professor H.M.L.K. Herath, Head Department of Agribusiness Management, Professor H.M.I.K. Herath, Head Department of Plantation Management, Dr. R.H.M.K. Ratnayaka, Head Department of Horticulture and Landscape Gardening, Dr. D.R. Gimhani, Head Department of Biotechnology, Dr. J.A.A.C. Vijay Singha, Head Department of Biosystem Technology, Dr. A.S.A. Salgadu, 21st Agras Coordinator, Ms. Dulani Jaikodi, Assistant Registrar, Faculty of Agriculture and Plantation Management, Mr. Ravindu Prabhashwara, 21st Agras Student Coordinator, Ms. Dilmi Ratnayaka, 21st Agras Student Secretary, to light up the oil lamp.
Thank you very much, our esteemed guests. Throughout its history, Wayamba University of Sri Lanka has produced exceptional, outstanding graduates who conquered all over the world. This is another proud moment to her since it's the baptism of our newest generation of research scientists. Therefore, it's eminent to remark of the greatness of our alma mater. Ladies and gentlemen, let's strive for the university anthem.
ලංකා වයඹ දිසා සුජාත ධරණි තලේ සුරංගතු සරසවිදි නිති අපේ අරුන්දති තරුවලසේ ලංකාම්බරයේ අරුන්දති තරුවලසේ ලංකාම්බරයේ කල් පැරකුම් කිවිනැන පහනින සුමඟුල් සමිඳුන් සිහවිරු වදනින හැම කල් රංජිත වයඹ යසෝරස උරුමය වේ අපගේ උරුමය වේ අපගේ උරුමය වේ අපගේ උරුමය වේ අපගේ මල් පල සම්පත වොරඳන කෙත් වතු අස්වනු ඉසුරින් සපුරන නෙක් විදු නැන දහරින් දය ඔබයන මෙහෙවර වේ අපගේ මෙහෙවර වේ අපගේ මෙහෙවර වේ අපගේ මෙහෙවර වේ අපගේ ලංකා වයඹ දිසා සුජාත ධරණි තලේ සුරංගතු සරසවිදි නිති අපේ අරුන්දති තරුවලසේ ලංකාම්බරයේ අරුන්දති තරුවලසේ ලංකාම්බරයේ පෙරලා ඉසිවර නැන සමුදා සදාලන සරසවි මෞනි අපේ නව චින්තනයේ උල්පත් මතු කොට නව ලෝකය වෙත පියවර තබනු විවරණ දුන මැනවි 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 විවරණ දුන මැනවි
Thank you very much. There are very distinguished guests who have cherished us with their presence today. Among them, we would like to announce the honorable members of the head table in 21st Agras.
Vice Chancellor of Wayamba University of Sri Lanka, Senior Professor Udit Jayasinghe. Keynote Speaker of 21st Agras, Dr. Direk Hedi. Dean of Faculty of Agriculture and Plantation Management, Professor Jagat Edirisinghe. Registrar of Wayamba University of Sri Lanka, Mr. Don Chitrananda. Academic Coordinator of 21st Agras, Dr. Suranta Salgado. Student Coordinator of 21st Agras, Mr. Ravindu Prabhashwara. I honorably invite these distinguished guests to proceed to the head table.
Thank you very much, sir. He has been an exemplary figure in our faculty. Has consistently demonstrated a deep passion for the fostering research and the academic excellence. So, now I would like to invite coordinator of the 21st Agras, Dr. Suranta Salgado, to deliver the welcome speech.
A very good morning to all of you. Chief guest, Senior Professor Udit Jayasinghe, and our keynote speaker, Dr. Derek Hedy, and Dean Jagat Edrisinghe, and Mr. Chitrananda, and dear distinguished invitees, guests, non-academic staff members, and my dear students. Today is a happy day for the Faculty of Agriculture and Plantation Management. And it is a great privilege to me as the coordinator to welcome you all to the 21st Agricultural Research Symposium. So throughout the day, we have a very tight schedule with the inaugural session, and it will be followed with technical sessions. So our students will really engage an evaluation of their research. So there are 135 researchers' new findings to be presented today, and then the day will end with the award ceremony. So I would cordially invite and welcome all of you to enjoy the Students' Research Symposium, which is a very great day of their lives, and encourage them. And also, I would like to appreciate our dear sponsors. Without you, this could not be a success. So thank you, all the sponsors, for your generous support. And thank you again for spending the day, and our dear chief guest and keynote speaker, and all distinguished guests. So hope you will enjoy the 21st Agricultural Research Symposium of the Faculty of Agriculture and Plantation Management. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, it is with the utmost honor and privilege that we honor the present Dean of the Faculty, Professor Jagat Edrisinghe. Sir, we would like to invite address this mesmerizing audience.
Very good morning, everyone. Members of the head table, Vice Chancellor, sir, Dr. Derek Hedy, Registrar, Dr. Suranta Salgado, and all staff members here present, and my dear students. It gives me pleasure to talk in this Agras Symposium where all students come together to showcase their research. And we have a saying in our country that a farmer is good fit for a king, right? So today we are making the next generation of farmers in this country. So why am I saying next generation of farmers for you all? Because you have to involve in research and develop this industry. And when I went through Google in the morning, and I saw, and also in our teaching also we say that there is something called agricultural 4 in the world developing, coined around in 2018 if I am correct. And it says, it shows 3 ways to develop the sector. develop the industry. One is produce differently using new techniques. The second one is incorporate cross-industry technologies into agriculture and also use new technologies to make the food system efficient. So you can see that newly implementing things like algae farming to produce feedstock, to produce animal feed. That is huge, and these are new things coming in. And in the future, you will find that the food will be printed, right? So I see some of you laughing. Food will be printed. You can go into a McDonald's, print your own food, right? So that is the future. So we should not think of old ways that we have been here, that we have been doing, we are used to doing, and farmers already know that, right? So our farmers already know that. Your job is to create new things, right? Create new things. And there will be cultured meat in the next generation. When you become like us, there will be cultured meat, and you will be not killing any animals to eat meat, and it will be cultured from cells of animals. So that is the future. So don't think that that whatever existed up to now, you will have to do the same thing in the future. Now, because there was a quote from Einstein, I will wind up my speech with something I read about very recently. Now, we obviously in our A-levels, we did physics, and I suck at physics. That is why I am in the agriculture faculty, not in the medical faculty. So in physics, we were at that time, we were learning Newton's three laws of motion, and that was a big thing for me at that time. But later Einstein came, right? So the quote from Einstein was there. That is why I took this example. Later Einstein came and proved that some of the things may be wrong. And what now? Einstein thought the fastest thing that is traveling is light. There can be nothing faster than light, right? But in 2022, the Nobel Prize for Physics went to 3 scientists, showing that fastest thing that travel is not light. It is the information in entangled particles, right? So one particle in one place, if these 2 particles are entangled, one particle in one place, if something happens to that, the other particle knows it, even it's far away, millions of galaxies away, right? So that is the fastest thing traveling. That is information, right? So see how things change. And if you read someone called Schrödinger, if I'm mispronouncing his name, forgive me. There was a famous experiment called Schrödinger's cat. Read it on Google, Schrödinger's cat. And he thought, looking at this information, and even Einstein didn't believe that this is happening. He said it is a spooky action at a distance. That is what he said, right? Spooky action at a distance. He said that cannot happen. But 2022, Nobel Prize went to the 3 people who proved that that can happen, that particle can share information through galaxies apart. So Schrödinger, in his cat experiment, it's a thought experiment, in his cat experiment thought, he found that a cat can be alive and dead at the same time, right? So for you and me, it's magic. Cat can be alive and dead at the same time, same instance, until you observe that. So therefore, Schrödinger thought, this is very difficult to explain. He gave up on physics, came to biology. So obviously biology is much easier than physics. So that is why we are in biology, right? So what I tried to say is research, whatever you have to do is you have to, don't worry about what your findings, maybe your research failed in this first instance that you learned research, your research failed, but what is important is learn the methodology correctly, learn the research methodology correctly. So I hope every one of you have learned the research methodology correctly, and thereby, when you find something new, like the spooky action at a distance, you should be able to justify that I have found the right thing, although many people think that it is wrong. So, very good luck to everyone who's presenting today, and wish you best of luck. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for your inspiring words. Ladies and gentlemen, it's with immense pleasure that we mention our Vice Chancellor of Wayamba University of Sri Lanka. He has been an invaluable asset to our university and faculty. So, this cordial invitation goes to Senior Professor Udit Jayasinghe, Vice Chancellor of Wayamba University of Sri Lanka, to address the gathering.
Good morning to everybody, including those in the head table, dear fellow academics, administrative staff, and very especially the students who are going to present the outcomes of their research. So I let it stop from the point where my good friend Jagat stopped. This is a forum that we are going to see extent to which you have achieved a skill that we wanted to have. That skill is coming from agreements to the principles, because day-to-day life, we always with agreements. If somebody says, I am a man, if he thinks I am a man, I am a man. But for the principles, whoever thinks it should be a principle. So training for research is to show it very clearly. Research is therefore giving two skills that are the two most important aspects of mindset out of 52 those mindsets we have in our life. That is our ability to come into an agreement about those agreements that we have developed. That means vitarka, that means we will have to go for an objective achievement, very objectively, by utilizing the principles. When we achieve that one, we are naturally achieving the second one, that is vicharya, that means expression of it, as Jagat told, information. Right? So we are going to see whether you have achieved it, because it is to be achieved through a degree of honors. These two very important qualities, that's why it has come into the final year. So this is, I am thinking, from statistical point of view, it is N-1. Why it is N-1? That is the most important thing, not the N, but N-1. We always reduce 1 to maintain what is called randomness. But here also N-1, because don't think it is the end of your life today. You have one more thing to achieve, that is implant training. But you come into the peak today because we believe it is the last day that you are going to gather as a team. You will never until the end of your life will meet you as a batch again in total. I guaranteed it. You will not be able to bring all people into a single group ever again in your life. Nobody of us were able to see. All in the batch came for a purpose. So today it may be. Even I know today also it is N-1, right? We are happy about that. Why? Because it is education. Education is not a chance you got to learn freely, but you will have to give us some sort of effort. That's why even in the Buddhism, Sutra, Vinaya, Abhidharma, all these things. In Sutra it is equal to Vinaya. So discipline of a student is a matter. That's why you are trained for something, you have gone through something, you have gone through a process of learning, teaching, research, implant training, all these physical aspects, plus we want you to maintain what is called the Wayamba qualities. As Jagat very clearly told, we have trained over 2,000 agriculture students, graduates, but never ever anywhere is telling in general Wayamba graduates are bad. So out of 2,000, we were able to maintain such good standards in the country. Wayamba graduates, and especially Makandur graduates, then if I talk from the agriculture graduate, they are doing their job properly. So please do it, maintain that quality. That is very, very important to maintain. I'm really happy with all the staff members, academics, administrators, non-academics, together with the student over the last few months, admit all these financial difficulties, trade union actions, fighting for their rights and everything. They have done their job of training you. Everybody met with their students some way or other, whatever circumstances exist. When you decide it is the day, the May 3rd is the Aggress Day, we were in some suspect whether we would be able to have it. But see, whatever the academics have done their job to bring you into this situation. These are not coming automatically. That is the dedication. So in every profession, as very clearly told by others, whether it is a doctor, whether it is a scientist, or a tradesman, or a farmer, whoever in the society out of that group, 3 to 5% or maximum 10% people may not be behaving according to the profession. But that is not to say other 90 are not performing. So when we are talking always, we should tell our students are good. That is to say 98% of students are really good. Others are not bad. They may be making some errors, mistakes. We want to correct them to bring them into the platform that we want to achieve. So in that sense, I am really happy in the Wayamba University of Sri Lanka and in the Makandur premises. In particular, now I am talking about agriculture faculty, as very famous these days, we don't have any rilau. අපේ කුෂි විද්‍යාපීඨයේ රිලව් නැත. එහෙම කුෂි විද්‍යාපීඨයේ රිලව් ඉන්නවා කියලා හිතනවා නම් ඒක හිතෙන්නේ කවුරු හරි රිලව්න්ට කැමති ඔය බෝතල් පත්තර වලින් ජීවත් වෙන අයිගුන්ටිකේකට පමණමයි. So with that comment, I am going to tell, please do it in the best way, behave well, achieve the disciplines, achieve the principles, and when it's come to the implant training, maybe in 4 to 5 months' time, please come here, show your talents again, and for that, I would be able to sign as in your certificate together with Mr. Chittananda as a register, as an agricultural graduate. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. I was the coordinator for the 5th Aggress. I'm happy to be here as the chief guest now in the 21st Aggress. Wish to be retained, if nothing happens, up to 30th Aggress and even after that. Thank you so much. I wish you all the best today to show the achievement of yours from agreements to principles and to show you have achieved all aspects of your learning we have written. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, it's with great honor and excitement that we announce our esteemed keynote speaker of 21st Aggress, Dr. Derek Heddy. He is a senior research fellow at the International Food Policy Research Institute in Washington, D.C., and development economist with a focus on agricultural development, nutrition, and poverty. Therefore, we extend our warmest welcome to Dr. Heddy, grateful for the opportunity to learn from his profound knowledge and insights. Dr. Heddy, we honorably invite you to proceed to address the gathering.
Just press this. I don't know. Okay, thank you.
All right, good morning, everyone. I'd like to start by just thanking the faculty and management for inviting me. It's a great honor and also a pleasure to speak to not only staff, but honours students. I did my own honours degree, I think in 2004 in Australia. And I remembered it as a very exciting, very challenging year. So I also sympathise with all the challenges you've faced. But it's also a very enjoyable and important year in your careers. So I wish you all the best for the future. So I'm going to talk today about what agriculture can do for nutrition. As was said, I'm an economist, an agricultural economist, but also sort of work as a health economist as well. And I'm an economist focusing on agriculture and food systems, but with a strong focus on nutrition, but also food security and poverty. And today I'm very honored to talk about these connections. Just as an outline, I'm going to give a very brief history of agricultural development strategies. That's kind of from a policy and partly economics point of view. But then also talk about why nutrition is so important. I know you have a very good nutrition faculty here. And it's useful to start making linkages between agriculture and nutrition. And then more theoretically and conceptually, how agriculture is linked to nutrition outcomes. And then some evidence on the strength of these linkages from various projects that I've been working on over the past decade. And then I'll talk very briefly about future implications for research, but a lot of that is up to folks like you, up to students in the room who are starting out their careers and thinking about how they can make agriculture more nutritious for human health. So I'm going to aim to give a non-technical talk. If you're interested in any of my work, of course, you can find that on Google Scholar, and I will, as I said, try not to talk in a heavy Australian accent, and I hope you can understand me well. So a very brief history of agriculture or ag and development in Asia. Of course, everybody in this room has heard of the Green Revolution. And this was critically important in the 1960s because many South Asian countries had faced famine and they were dependent on food aid. But preventing famines in that viewpoint really meant supplying enough calories, right? Stopping people going hungry. But since then, there's been growing awareness that national food security and individual food security does not guarantee individual food security for all people at all times. That's the FAO definition, or part of the FAO definition from 1996. Right? So it's possible to have enough food in the country, and that's true of Sri Lanka right now, but it's possible that many people are going hungry because they just don't have access, they don't have the incomes, or food markets are not working well. So in the 1990s in development economics, there was a really strong shift to poverty. So institutions like the World Bank and other international development partners, but also national governments, very much focused on poverty. And there was a strong interest in understanding whether agricultural investments and agricultural strategies reduce poverty. And why do they reduce poverty? And in economics, when I first joined IFPRI in 2008, we were doing a lot of work on this kind of issue. And the answer was, well, a lot of poor people grow cereals. So if you can improve the productivity of rice farmers, who are often fairly poor, will get more income. And poor people, even in urban areas, also spend a lot of money on buying cereals. So that kind of made sense, right? If people spend a lot of money on rice, you invest in rice, you reduce the price of rice, then that increases disposable income. But then we also found that richer farmers can make their non-farm neighbors richer by spending more. So if farmers start making more money, they build a better house, they hire construction workers to do that, and those construction workers are better off. There are lots of these kind of farm, non-farm linkages. But sorry, that should say year, but by the early 2000s, nutrition was also emerging as a major global problem, not a new problem, but a problem getting more attention. But it was also emerging from evidence that investing in nutrition was a high return investment and a high return investment in human capital. There was a very famous experiment from Guatemala that one of my colleagues, John Hoddinott, was involved in. And in the early 1970s, they did an experiment, a randomized experiment. They assigned young kids nutrition supplements, so protein-rich, nutrient-rich foods. And they gave other kids nothing, just sort of very basic foods, nothing fortified or nutrient enhanced. So we had a treatment group and a control group in the 1970s. And they actually followed these children 20, 25 years later when they'd grown up to become adults. And so that they had experimental variation in early life nutrition. And by the 2000, these children that had been given supplements had grown up taller, which is maybe not surprising, but they'd grown up smarter too. They did better on cognitive development tests, like IQ tests, etc. And they were also earning higher wages. So that's what I mean by nutrition as an investment in human capital. So this kind of evidence really generated a lot of interest in international development agencies, especially the World Bank, but in the British Aid Agency, the EU, USAID, the US Aid Agency as well. And there was also growing awareness that malnutrition emerges very early in life. So investing early in life in maternal and child nutrition is very important. This is a graph, I guess, for agricultural students maybe is not so familiar. It shows what's called height for age Z-scores, and that basically means how tall is a kid relative to an international healthy growth standard, right? So the red line there is where healthy children should be, at 0, basically, because this is a standardized score. So anything below the red line is bad. That means a child is not growing fast enough. And on the x-axis, you'll see a child's age in months. And so the first thing you notice, point 1 here, is that on average, children, this is children actually from a range of developing countries, on average, children are born small. They're born about almost 0.5 standard deviations too small. So what does that tell you? That it tells you that something's going wrong in pregnancy. So mothers have poor nutrition, right? And then what happens is for the first few months, they're just getting breastfed. Nothing gets worse. They're small, but nothing gets worse. But from about 5 to 6 months of age, you see this huge decline in their relative height, their height relative to this international growth standard. And they fall really far behind until about 24 months of age, and then they kind of stabilize. So in nutrition, we call this the first 1,000 days of life. And that means from conception, so the 9 months in pregnancy, to about age 2. That's roughly 1,000 days. And this 1,000 days of life is a critical window. So it means providing children good foods, good breastfeeding practices, but also mothers as well, because they need to have good nutrition to promote healthy growth during pregnancy and in these first few years of life. So that was a very important finding in the early 2000s, that investing in nutrition has to happen very early in life. And since then, with this rising importance of nutrition, different sectors have been asked to do more for nutrition, right? So nutrition emerges from bad diets, but also infections, so public health is important, but fixing the diet issues is really important. And in childhood, as I said, good nutrition promotes both physical growth and brain development. But at the same time, we know that poor diets in adulthood are risk factors for diabetes, high blood pressure, heart disease, various cancers. And these are issues in Sri Lanka and many other middle-income countries as well. So in fact, globally, poor diets are now the #1 risk factor in what's called the global burden of disease. Okay? So poor diets cause more disease than anything else, including smoking or pollution, car accidents, etc. So in nutrition, we call this a double burden problem. We have problems of undernutrition, children not growing enough, children being too thin, and we have problems of kind of calorie overnutrition, obesity, but also just unhealthy diets that cause disease. And on top of that, of course, we're facing multiple threats to nutrition and food security. We have a climate crisis. We have different other kinds of environmental crises. We've just had a COVID crisis. We have economic crises, such as we've seen in Sri Lanka. And we have political and institutional crises in different countries around the world. And all of those things threaten nutrition and food security. And as I said, of course, Sri Lanka has faced various aspects of all these crises and still does. In Sri Lanka, if we just turn to the context here, this is all very familiar to people in the audience. The basic story in the last year or two has been that food prices have risen so fast and risen much faster than wage rates of ordinary workers. So this is data I just took from the central bank reports, and these are indices where 100 is equal to the value of the food price index or wage index in June 2021. And you see all these different colored lines which show agricultural labor wages for men, agricultural labor wages for women, and the orange line shows this skilled non-farm labor wage, that's like construction, etc. And wages and food prices moved kind of similar until 2021, but of course the explosion in food prices from March 22 onwards, with the depreciation of the rupee, saw this huge increase in food prices, but not matched by any increase in wages. So what does that mean? Here we do something economists often do is look at wages in terms of their purchasing power for buying food. So these are wages deflated by food prices. So how much food can you buy with a wage? And you'll see at June 21, for example, a skilled non-farm laborer in US dollars, he was earning about $9 a day. That started to decline in 2021. But from March 2022 to June 2022, the disposable income of that wage, the purchasing power of that wage fell by 30%. And the same is true for farm labor for men and farm labor for women. Although you'll also know that farm labor for women, they just get lower wages as well, so that they stay lower. So this is a very disastrous situation and obviously a critical risk for nutrition in Sri Lanka. Likewise, this is what we call the cost of a healthy diet. This is a new indicator. And it basically says rather than just looking at what people are actually eating, we're going to look at what the Ministry of Health in Sri Lanka says we should eat. We should eat this much starchy staples, and rice, etc., this much dairy, this much vegetables, this much fruit, this much protein, and nuts and oils. So we cost out, what does it cost to achieve a healthy diet? And this is measured in rupees per person per day. And so you can see on the far left there in December 2020, it cost maybe 155, 160 rupees per person today. But the real cost has gone up to around 215, and so the healthy diet has increased in cost by about 30% just in real terms. Okay, so that's 30% above non-food inflation. And it's also worth noting, just from a nutritional point of view, 75% of the total recommended diet consists of non-staple foods. So I don't know about Wayamba University, but in Asia in general, agricultural development has a long history of focusing on rice. But for a healthy diet, it's really critical to focus on a balanced diet: dairy, vegetables, fruits, protein foods, animal source foods, and nuts and oils. So when we look very holistically at a healthy, balanced diet, it's already expensive and it's become much more expensive during this crisis. So how can agriculture help nutrition? We have all these challenges, and food policies need to be smarter in every sense. Nutrition smart, climate smart, equity smart. We need to make sure the poor are involved and marginalized groups, but also basic value for money smart. As you know, farmers won't adopt technologies unless they're profitable. And rigorous research has a really critical role to play in telling us how food policies can be smarter in every sense. I'm not going to go through this complex framework. This is a framework I developed maybe 10 or 11 years ago in a project. But the whole idea really was to try and understand the linkages between agriculture and nutrition. And we basically came down to understanding 4 linkages. So the first is that traditional approach I told about. Agriculture can reduce poverty. So agricultural growth, productivity growth, can be a driver of income growth. And if you have more income, you can afford to buy better foods, but also use better doctors, etc. The second is that agriculture can be a food price modifier, right? So some food prices are basically determined internationally, right? There could be an international price of rice. But for something like eggs, as we know recently, very hard to import eggs usually, also very hard to import many fruits and vegetables that are highly perishable. Well, when we invest in those products, we can change their prices. So there's things, if we invest in the poultry sector, we could make eggs cheaper potentially. If we invest in the dairy sector, we could make fresh milk cheaper. And then a third is a provider of own farm foods. So the Sri Lankan government has been, and other development partners have been encouraging households during this crisis to grow more fruits and vegetables, and also to produce more livestock, fishing, etc. And that can help farm households, obviously. And then fourth, there are health pathways that I won't talk about, but you can think of lots of health risks with agriculture, right? Like excessive pesticide use, for example. But exposure to livestock diseases could be another. I won't talk about those today. When we look at these questions, we've used a lot of different kinds of data. We've used large household surveys linked to geographic information systems data. We've used consumer price survey data. I already showed you data on consumer prices as well as wages. In Sri Lanka, we're working with Hati to better utilize their retail price data, for example. And we've used simulation models to look at the economy-wide effects of different kinds of investments. So the first linkage to quickly talk about is agriculture is this driver of income growth. But one question is, even if we can improve incomes, will that be enough to diversify diets in a healthy way? So early research showed that green revolution technologies, improved rice and wheat and maize varieties, for example, reduced poverty at a household level and national levels. But there was very little research at that time on nutrition outcomes like stunting, which is being too short, or wasting, which is a child being too thin. And so there was no real survey evidence from the Green Revolution. So in one study, we looked at Bangladesh over 1996-2011 as a late Green Revolution success story. And over that time period, rice yields in Bangladesh grew by 70%, so very rapid, and all, of course, via improved seeds and irrigation mainly. So we linked nutrition data to household survey data, but we found that growth in rice yields had very little link with child nutrition. Instead, child nutrition improvements over that time were associated with more consumption of non-rice foods, such as dairy. So dairy consumption in particular was strongly associated with reducing stunting rates. So the basic issue there, of course, is that rice has lots of energies, i.e. it has lots of calories, but very little micronutrients and only poor quality protein for promoting growth and development. So that begs the question, are Asian populations, also some African populations, still consuming too much rice? So I've been looking lately for evidence of what I call too much rice attachment, and this is actually looking at per capita calorie supplies in 2019 from the FAO, and comparing it to these global diet guidelines. So if you look at the first column there, that says the Eat Lancet, those are global nutrition guidelines. And that says a healthy diet consists of about 850 calories from starchy staples, 314 calories from pulses and nuts, etc. And then meat and eggs, 151, etc. So those are guidelines for, rough guidelines for how people should balance their diet. Now, if you look at Asia, Sri Lanka, despite being, at least until recently, an upper middle income country, was consuming on average 1,569 calories. So far too much rice. I'm sorry to say this in the room. But Bangladesh, even more. Nepal, even more. India, a bit complicated because it consumes rice and wheat. So the problem is, if you're consuming too much rice, what does that mean? You're consuming too little of everything else, right? Too little pulses and nuts, vegetables, fruits, dairy, meat, eggs, etc. So on average, Sri Lankans consume 80% too much starchy staples, according to this data. And in other research I'm not showing here, I've also found that these rice-consuming countries have higher child malnutrition than they should relative to their income levels, and higher maternal anemia than countries that consume other staples. And also that rice countries are relatively slow to diversify into healthy non-staple foods, even as their incomes go up. This graph just kind of shows this. The green countries are rice countries, the red countries are non-rice countries, and the x-axis is GDP per capita. And so that blue line that runs through this is kind of the average levels of how people diversify away from non-starchy staples into other foods. And you'll see that almost all the green rice countries are below this line. So they're diversifying diets too slowly. And this is the graph I referred to above. This is showing anemia among pregnant women, also GDP per capita. And you see the green rice countries are above the line, meaning they have anemia rates that are higher than you would expect just from their GDP per capita. And the same thing is true of child wasting. Many rice-consuming countries have higher child wasting than you would expect. So agriculture is a driver of income growth. Of course, it's important to sustainably increase agricultural productivity, but it's very important to encourage agricultural diversification and food system diversification. So that could include trade, for example, importing other foods. And it's really critical to encourage consumer diversification into nutrient-dense foods, because this is not just an agricultural problem, it's a consumer behavior problem as well. And so a big challenge for nutritionists and social scientists is to figure out how to encourage people to eat more fruits, vegetables, legumes, meat, fish, etc., and discourage consumption of processed foods. So the second linkage I talked about earlier was agriculture as a food price modifier. If we invest in agriculture, we can change food prices, maybe make healthy diets more affordable. So why are diets so poor in poor countries? Well, one question is, what if rice and other staples are just much cheaper than nutrient-dense foods, especially in cost per calorie terms? So maybe Asians, for example, are eating a lot of rice just because rice is very cheap. So to test this, we derived a new indicator of what we call relative caloric prices. So I'll just give you an example. We can take eggs, for example. What's the relative caloric price of eggs? It's the ratio of 1 calorie of a given food, in this case eggs, to 1 calorie of the cheapest cereal. Like we could take rice as an example. So if an egg calorie basically costs, 20 rupees, or an egg costs 20 rupees, and you convert it to calories, and a rice calorie costs 4 rupees, this relative caloric price is just 20 divided by 4, it's 5. Okay? So that means an egg calorie is 5 times as expensive as a rice calorie. So some nice features about this. Well, poor people really care about calories. A poor person doesn't know how many calories are exactly in a bowl of rice, but they know what fills the belly. And hunger is a very strong motivator for human behavior. And so poor people also have some idea of calorie density. They know that rice is filling. They know that watermelon is not filling. Okay? So these relative prices also capture the cost of diversifying out of starchy staples like rice and into healthy foods. And so when we looked at price data, what do we find? So these are relative caloric price ratios for various foods by region. And I've highlighted Asia in yellow. And the really striking thing is for something like cow's milk, so cow's milk calories are about 7.8 times as expensive as starchy staple calories. Chicken eggs, about 6 times as expensive. Meat and fish, also 5 to 6 times as expensive. So for poor people, it's very hard to diversify out of rice because the calories from healthy foods are very expensive. They might be cheap in terms of other nutrients like iron or vitamin A or zinc, but they're expensive forms of calories, and that's a constraint for poor people to diversify their diets. I'll just go through this. So why are these nutrient-dense foods so expensive? I talked a little bit about this before, but there are different explanations. So one explanation often in Asia is that governments make rice extra cheap by subsidizing it or giving it away. But the other key feature of many healthy foods is that they're perishable, right? So they can't be cheaply imported. It's been difficult for Sri Lanka to import eggs lately. It's difficult to import fresh milk. It's difficult to import fruits and vegetables. So if you have a problem like the fertilizer crisis that Sri Lanka experienced, if you have supply-side production problems in the country, that's also going to help drive up prices because we can't just cheaply import fruits and vegetables and other foods from other countries. And that perishability also leaves these foods very vulnerable, very susceptible to supply-side problems like disease or poor transport. So there are many risks for these perishable foods that are on the farm, but also off the farm. So on-farm productivity risks, do we have enough improved varieties for fruits and vegetables, etc.? Do we have the right technologies and farmer knowledge? There are price risks because these foods are seasonal. There are pest risks. There are lots of coordination challenges. So milk, for example, is very tricky to collect from lots of small producers before it spoils. And then, of course, high transport costs, poor infrastructure, lack of storage, remoteness is a problem, and then also food safety and contamination risks. So for many of these healthy foods that we care about, there are actually a lot of supply-side problems as well. So lastly, agriculture is a provider of food for the household itself. So during this crisis, the government, FAO, WFP, were encouraging households, particularly farm households, to grow more food for themselves. And there's been many evaluations, many scientific evaluations of what we call homestead food production programs, mostly by nutritionists. And they try to get households to grow more food, but also educate them to eat more nutritious foods. Economists, however, we have not been very enthusiastic about these programs. Of course, the basic problem is that no small farm could ever be self-sufficient in healthy foods, and we don't want them to. It's not possible for a farmer with 1 hectare to grow enough food to feed his family in a healthy way. That's just not possible. And of course, many poor people don't own land, so that's a problem. Most poor people still obtain most of their food from the markets, so still making food more affordable in the markets or just giving households more income is really critical to improve diets. Own production may not be the best use of households' resources and their labor. Water is a critical problem, especially for fruits and vegetables. I'm sure everyone sort of knows that here. You have to have good water access to make these programs work. And then these programs involve nutrition education, but we don't know if that's really necessary, but we also don't know how much it costs because it's difficult and challenging to educate people on better diets, even though we do need to do so. So I share some of this skepticism, but one thing we found in our research is that livestock production has been very beneficial around the world for farming children, especially dairy production, but egg production also has considerable potential to improve diets and increase children's consumption of these very nutrient-dense animal source foods. So just wrapping up, research questions for the future. I think the students in the room are best placed to tackle many of these goals. I think there's clearly a need to redesign agriculture for nutrition and other goals, other welfare objectives. And a big question is, can we engineer more nutritious and more sustainable foods? Is biofortification an answer? Can we breed improved fruit and vegetable varieties or improved livestock breeds or more productive agriculture? And can more sustainable farming practices, which I'm sure are a topic of research in Wayamba University, can they be made economically attractive? Because I think that's a big challenge for persuading farmers to develop more sustainable practices. And then a big policy question is, should governments diversify investments away from staples like rice? Have we reached the limits of where we're going to get in terms of productivity of rice, and should we be focusing on other foods or even cash crops to improve incomes? And then another big question, I think, for fruits and vegetables and other products is, can these post-harvest technologies make nutritious foods cheaper, safer, more available, and also higher quality? And then lastly, a kind of key question for Sri Lanka and other countries is, how can the policy and institutional environment for food systems be improved? How can we prevent future food crises and use agriculture to improve nutrition? And then another important question for universities like Wayamba is, how can we work across sectors, across disciplines? How can agricultural economists, agricultural scientists work with nutritionists, public health, and environmentalists to improve the food environment and improve what people eat? Thank you, and I hope some of the folks in this room can do research on these important issues in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hedy, for your words of wisdom. Today, as we gather here to celebrate the culmination of countless hours of dedication, intellectual pursuit, and unwavering commitment of research excellence, it's with great pride that we present you the proceedings of our esteemed research symposium, a testament to the tireless efforts of our researchers in advancing in knowledge and innovation.
Research is not merely an individual endeavor, but a collaborative pursuit that pushes the boundaries of human understanding. The publication of these proceedings not only showcase the remarkable depth and breadth of our researchers' work, but also represents their invaluable contribution to the academic community. Hereby, we invite student representatives, 21st Agras, to present the proceedings to our distinguished guests. Thank you so much. Vihanga, there's a saying which says, always have an attitude of gratitude.
Absolutely, Kanchana. We cherish the graceful presence of Dr. Derek Heddy for the 21st Agras Research Symposium. In order to appreciate that, we would like to invite Senior Professor Udit Jayasinghe, Vice Chancellor of Wayamba University of Sri Lanka, to present the token of appreciation to today's keynote speaker, Dr. Derek Heddy.
Thank you so much, sir. Next, I would like to invite the Dean of the Faculty of Agriculture and Plantation Management, Professor Jagat Edirisinghe, to present the token of appreciation for the Vice Chancellor of Wayamba University of Sri Lanka, Senior Professor Udit Jayasinghe.
Thank you very much, sir. Let us warmly welcome our student coordinator of 21st Agras, Mr. Ravindra Prabhashwara, to deliver the vote of thanks on behalf of the entire student community.
Good morning. Today is the one of most prominent events of the Faculty of Agriculture and Plantation Management, Wayamba University of Sri Lanka, as we are witnessing the Agricultural Research Symposium for the 21st consecutive year. It is with great privilege I ask the 21st Agras Student Coordinator take this opportunity to extend my sincere gratitude to all who made the 21st Agras happen. First and foremost, I would like to express a heartfelt gratitude to Senior Professor Udit K. Jayasinghe, Chief Guest of the event, Vice Chancellor, Wayamba University of Sri Lanka, for his support and always been a guiding light. My heartiest thanks goes to Dr. Derek Heddy, keynote speaker of the event, for the grace in this occasion despite his busy schedule with his insightful thoughts. Next, I would like to thank Professor Jagat Edirisinghe, Dean, Faculty of Agriculture and Plantation Management, for being a pillar of strength to us all. Thank you all the deans of the other faculties, Mr. W.A.D. Chitrananda, Registrar, Wayamba University of Sri Lanka, Mr. Upali Dharmadasa, Bursar, Wayamba University of Sri Lanka, and all the head of Department of Faculty for their presence and contributions. The 21st Agras would not such a glamour without the constant support, commitment and guidance of this individual. My sincere thanks goes to Dr. Suranta Salgadu, Coordinator, 21st Agras, and other 5 committee chairperson, Dr. Janaka Vikramasinghe, Dr. Shanika Lakmali, Mr. Virajit Kurupu, Mr. Sagara Pushpakumara, Ms. Nadira D. Silva. I thank all the academic staff members of the faculty, all the academic supportive staff members for their contribution. Our deepest appreciation to all the official sponsoring parties for their assistance. I would also like to acknowledge Ms. Dulani Jayakodi and the staff of the Dean's Office. All non-academic staff members, Director, ICT Center, Makandura and Kuliapedia premises, and ICT staff members. Library, Makandura premises, Common Supportive Unit and Maintenance Unit, Makandura premises, Farm Manager, FAPM, Cleaning Service, Media Partners, and the Bioscope team for their cooperation. Thank you all the senior and junior badges of FAPM for their enormous support. And finally, teamwork makes the dream work. Last but not least, I would like to thank the 21st Agras Student Secretary, 21st Agras Committee Student Coordinators and Secretaries, and all of my colleagues of 2017 and 18 batch Without the hard work and dedication, the 21st Agris would not be a reality. We did, we do, and we always will. Wishing you all a fruitful 21st Agricultural Research Symposium. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ravindu. Remarking the end of the inaugural session of 21st Agris, let's rise for the national anthem.